Hello and welcome to TrojanVision One-on-One. I am your host, Stephanie East. This is where we go behind the scenes to learn about the people who make Troy University special, and I'm really excited about our guest today. Aaron Taylor, a friend, a colleague, and I'm so excited to learn about his role here at Troy. You are the Director of Television, which we are going to get into, the hardest working man in show business here at Troy. But we want to learn a little bit more about what makes Aaron Taylor tick. So start off by telling us a little bit about your background, where you're from, your education, and all of that fun stuff.
I'm originally from Montgomery, born in Pensacola, Florida. So if anybody want to know that, but not Florida, but lived all my life in Montgomery. Graduated from Lamp High School there, but that was where I had my formative years from Montgomery. And then college, I wasted 2 years at another university in the state. I always tell people that. And then I made the best decision ever made in my life, and that was choosing to come to Troy. Got my undergraduate degree from Troy in broadcast journalism. Then I went to work in Montgomery for WAKA, something that we both have in common. We worked for Channel 8, not at the same time, that being said, but we did both work there. And then after a few years, got the job offer to come to Troy, and I'm getting ahead of myself. This is probably a better story later, but then came to Troy, and then got my master's degree from Troy a little bit later, after I've been here for a few years. But that's my educational background. That's my, growing up place, Montgomery. But now, I tell people, I've lived in Troy longer than I lived in Montgomery. So, I lived in Montgomery for 18 years, and I've been in Troy for longer than that. So Troy feels like my hometown now. I've been here so long. So.
Well, and you talked about coming here for your undergrad. We, of course, went to college together.
Yes,
so
we were
have
classmates.
A long history here at Troy. And I think coming to Troy was one of your best decisions for several reasons, which we'll get into as well. But did you always have a love for television? What made you want to get into this field?
Well, growing up, from the moment puberty hit and I got my voice, everyone was like you've got a voice for radio, you should do radio. And I was always like to be in front of people, and so my desire was to do something entertainment. My first goal, honestly, I wanted to be a filmmaker. If you met me in high school, I wanted to make movies, and me and my friends used to, with video cameras, would make little stupid movies. And every time there was a video project, a project, I would ask to do video, including one that we did a very raucous take on Hamlet for an English project that I went back and watched a few years ago, and I was like, I don't know how this teacher let us do what we did. It was the 90s, man. I always wanted to do something with video entertainment and film, but then when I graduated from high school, it was 1994. Yes, I'm that old. Do the math, folks. It was the rise of the independent filmmaker movement. One of my personal idols, Kevin Smith, was in that. But people like Quentin Tarantino and Richard Linklater and Kevin Smith and all of these independent filmmakers were just blowing up the film industry. And not that I could have gotten into it, but I was like, there were so many people getting into film. I was like, oh my gosh, now everybody with a camera is going to be in film. So I was like, well, then I'll transition to television because I've always liked TV and stuff like that. So I went to another university, and that was when I decided, I was like, I didn't get to do anything there. And so I spent 2 years there and didn't get to do anything with television while I was there. But I had experience with Troy. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I was on our Scholars Bowl team. And in this very studio, where we're recording this right now, I used to record. We had a show called Prep Bowl. and it was a quiz bowl show for high school teams. And I was in here, and my school, Lamp, the Scholars Bowl team there, we won for 5 straight years, the whole shebang. And so I was in the studio, I saw the environment, I knew what television, Troy had to offer in the way of television. And I still chose to go to another school because all my friends went there. But then I spent 2 years wasting away, probably partying a little bit too much. But I didn't feel good about it. Mm-hmm. So in the summer of '96, I actually, and not getting into details, but I spent like 2 weeks in the hospital. And for a little thing but it ended up I sat in a hospital bed for 2 weeks, and it gave me time to think. And when I thought about it, I was like, I need a change. I really, truly, my life is going off its rails. I do not like it where I am here at this East Alabama University. But I need to make a change. And I started thinking about Troy. And my dad, at the time, was the manager of Handy's Electronics. And one of his customers was a gentleman by the name of Bob Howell. It was a regular customer. Bob taught here at Troy. He's a graduate of Troy. And at the time, he was teaching adjunct here, and
of
had
course
a conversation.
was a news anchor in Montgomery.
News anchor at WSFA for years. But at the time, he talked to my dad, and he goes, well, why don't you get him to go look at Troy? So as soon as I got out of the hospital and was able to walk again, it wasn't like I was in a wheelchair. I just had a bad leg. But anyways, I was able to get around. We came down to Troy. I met with Dr. Paget, who was in charge of the journalism school for ages. And he convinced me to come to Troy. And didn't take long to convince me to come to Troy. And I was there that fall. So I wanted to do something, and television ended up being what I got into, and I enjoyed it. I mean, and that's what Troy gave me the opportunity, because this. And we'll talk more about what we do here and all that kind of stuff, obviously, but it gave me the chance to find my passion. And I met lifelong friends here, including one that we'll talk about later. I know I'm gonna save it for your questions because I know it's coming up later. But this gave me the opportunity to get my first break in television, and so I always wanted to do something, and this ended up being what I'm doing, and it's been a joy to be doing it.
And so then, as you mentioned, you worked in news for a while, but then decided to come back to Troy. When that opportunity opened up, what made you say, I want to go back and work in the place where I got my start?
Kyle Bozeman. Kyle Bozeman was a mentor. He was a friend. I got a phone call one day, and I was at Channel 8, and I wanted to make a change. I wanted to make a transition. I didn't know what that transition was. Honestly, I was seriously considering going to Mississippi State to get my meteorology degree. Because I had been talking to some of the weather people at Channel 8, and I'd always done it, and I enjoyed it. And so that was one of these ideas. I was nearing the end of my contract at Channel 8, and I was looking for a change, and I got a phone call from Kyle Bozeman. And he said, listen, Vince is leaving, and we need a production coordinator, and I'd like for you to apply for it. And I applied for it. And when the guy who's going to be your future boss says you should apply for a job, you apply for that job. And then I came to Troy, and that's what brought me to Troy. And it was Kyle, and like I said, Kyle, was my boss for many years, but I mean, he was, like I said, he's a mentor and a friend, one of the smartest people I've ever met. But he brought me here to run the student news operation. Not the position where I am now, but for the better part of 20 years, I ran TrojanVision News, and have seen a number of students throughout the years come through here. But that's what led me here, was that phone call. And I knew that moment, I was like, I had so much joy and fun being at TrojanVision. I wanted to continue that and be able to pass that on. And I was like, and no one else could do the job but me. I mean, come on, I was perfect for it. So, but that's what brought me here.
Well, you mentioned the students, and we know, and I want to talk about this in just a second, but we know TrojanVision is just top notch. I mean, one of the best places to get a journalism degree is here at Troy University. But as an educator running the student newsroom as production coordinator for 20 years, you've seen a lot of students succeed in this business. How does that make you feel knowing that you had a part in that?
Well, I mean, I live vicariously through them. I mean, and that's the thing, is like I get to see the students that I taught go out there and succeed. And, you know, when I'm recruiting new students to come here, I can sit there and point to them, you know, depending on where they are in the state, I can tell them which one of my students is anchoring or reporting in their city. Because we've got students in every market in Alabama. We've got students I've got graduates that are all over the world, you know, at every level. And so, and seeing them succeed, I get to live vicariously through my kids. And say that I joke, you know, that they are my kids, because they are. They're my kids. They call me TV Dad. I've got pictures on my wall in my office where people sign it, "Thanks, TV Dad." You know, and so I get to see that, and that's what brings me joy, is seeing their success and seeing them out there and getting out there in the real world. And that's the most important thing. And I always tell people, I was like, you know, we compete in competitions with other schools and things like that, and those awards are great, but the ultimate reward, the ultimate award is getting a job. And that's when they come through this program, that's what they do. They get jobs. And so, and I like seeing that. I like seeing that success from our students.
Yeah, I completely agree. As teaching here now, when I hear how excited they are getting a job, that's one of the best feelings, is to hear them be excited and to know that we had a part in that. Speaking of TrojanVision, though, this studio, I mean, we tell all students, if you are interested in broadcast journalism, you need to come to Troy. This rivals commercial television stations anywhere. So brag a little bit about TrojanVision.
Well, I mean, right now in the studio you're only seeing a small, well, you actually, thanks, Jeff. Jeff got a little bit wider so we can see a little bit more of what we're doing here. Jeff Herring, one of my coworkers, we've been working together forever. He's in the booth back there. But this studio is amazing. You know, a few years ago, Earl Hutto and his family donated $100,000 to us, and we used every cent of that and then some to make the studio look the way it does now. And we've always had the steak. This is the sizzle, what we see here. And recruiting students is so easy, because you just walk them into the studio and they can see it and they look at it. And we have people who get interviewed who, you know, that they get interviewed at other stations and they walk in and like, this place looks better than some of the professional TV stations I've walked into. It's true. And that gives me pride. But the ability to be able to see the light in kids' eyes when they come here, the oh wow wall. When we come into our production control where Jeff is right now, you walk in there and you see those monitors. I jokingly call it the oh wow, because you come around that corner and they look and they're like, oh wow. And it literally is what they're saying when they walk in. They come in here, they see this, they're like, this is where I can be. It's like, you can be on that news desk right over there your second week of school. We let students get involved as a freshman. We do 3 live 30-minute newscasts a day, 5 days a week. We are the only university in the United States that does that. Potentially the world. I don't know. We haven't gotten that far looking into it. But in the United States, like, nobody does what we do here. And that's what's amazing, is that the facilities, the experience, the faculty, you know, the staff, like we try to keep it as level with the commercial world as possible, so that transition from when they're here, they go out in the real world, they could graduate on a Friday and start work on a Monday. And
we're prime examples of that, and, yes. And your other half that we'll talk about in just a minute is another prime example of getting that experience here, being able to walk right into a television station and not even having to be trained, because we know how to do everything. And speaking of doing everything, you mentioned they can anchor on their second day, but it's not just that. The students do everything here for the newscast.
You can do everything, and I tell students to do everything. You know, we'll have a student who may do weather one day, news another day, direct the show one day, run cameras on another day, teleprompter on another day, do a story or two a week, you know, reporting. I tell students to do whatever whatever they can while they're here. It makes them a more valuable asset, a more marketable commodity to news directors. If you know, just being able to read words and look pretty is not important. I know that's important to me. I know for that, but that I was able to read words and look pretty. But you have to be able to do things, and especially the way that the industry has changed. From the top down, there were stations that within the last 5 years who had been firing their main anchors who were making like 7-figure salaries because all they did was looked good and read words. They want people now who can do social media, who can edit video, who can be in front of the camera, who have a varied skill set. And that's what we play into here. Our students get hired because they have all of those assets. When they get out in the real world, they get hired because they can do all of those things. I have news directors that call me, producers that call me all the time, like, we've got a position opening up. We want to hire a Troy grad first, so I want to put my pen in it. Tell me who you got coming out. So, and we appreciate that.
Well, and I know my first day here, they put me on teleprompter, and it made me realize how hard it is to run a teleprompter. And it made me appreciate, when I worked in news, the role of the teleprompter operator, because it is hard work. So we touched on this a little bit, but one of the reasons coming to Troy was one of your best decisions is you met your better half. I will say your better half.
I would definitely say my better half. Yes.
Who is now the head of the journalism school, the Hall School of Journalism and Communications.
Do to me. Dr. Robin Taylor.
Dr. Robin Taylor.
I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, you're good. And which I love, because again, we were all friends here in college, and when I saw your relationship blossom, it was so fun to see. So tell me why, that is so special to also have met your wife here at Troy.
We met for the first time in what was my old office. Like where my desk was where we first met. I don't remember that day. I'd love to be, it's an amazing love story where it was love at first sight and all that kind of fun stuff, but it wasn't. I actually, and she tells the story better if you want to get her on here, she tell it better someday, that's all good. But I first met her, I yelled at her. I was mean, as she said.
She does tell the story that way.
She called her mom and said, this mean guy, this guy was mean to me and he yelled at me and all that kind of stuff. As she put it, she later learned that I don't have an inside voice. And so the yelling was just because I'm loud and boisterous. But we met in there, and because Vince, who was in the position for me, had me go with these 2 young freshmen out on a story, and I was the senior who was going along. And I was like, all right, I'll go help them out, whatever, but we met and became fast friends while we were in school. And there was a group of us that were close friends, me and you and Jeff and Shay and Lane and Dez, names were thrown out there, but there was all this group that we had together that we were all buddies. And so Robin and I stayed friends. We both went and worked professionally. She's one of those cases where she got hired by WSFA. Here, she got interviewed in the newsroom by WSFA for a job she never existed, went to work for WSFA while she was still in school here. Another success story of the program. So there we go. But we stayed in touch over the years. We didn't date when we were in college. We didn't date it was like 15 years before we even dated. But she went out, and she's one of those success stories because she worked in television, she worked in newspapers, she worked in public relations, and folded all that skill set into becoming the director of the Hall School of Journalism, where we graduated. So between me being director of television and her being director of the journalism school, we've got the first floor hall on lockdown.
So
but that if I had not come to Troy, that wouldn't have happened, and me and her, our relationship blossomed. We eventually got married. We have a wonderful son, Brooks, who's a little entertainer himself, and lots of fur babies in there. Too many to name, especially if I get to the outside cats. But that relationship came out of the relationship here, but then her and I graduated with a master's degree at the same time here. When I was working here, she was working at the newspaper here in town. But that becomes the second best decision I ever made in my life was asking her to marry me, and where we are now. And that's why I always qualified the best decision I ever made in my life to come to Troy, because if I had not come to Troy, everything else that is good in my life would not have happened from that point on. And they can send me a check for that publicity there. So, but it's the truth. I always say that, and it's not over exaggerating that if I'd not come to Troy, everything that's going on in my life would not have happened. And I firmly believe that. I would not have been able to, I would not have met Robin. I would not be in the position where I am today. And wouldn't have Brooks and all that kind of fun stuff. So I think that it is very important. So
I love that story.
Yeah. And I don't make you cry. I was starting to see her start tearing up.
But speaking of Brooks, you mentioned he is such an entertainer. So what is it like knowing that your son is a chip off the old block as a performer?
Oh, well, I mean, it was inevitable. Like, if it wasn't, then it had been unusual. So, but he's, I have to say, like, he does competitive dance, but he likes to, be in front of people and talk, and he's been interviewed for TrojanVision before, and he was, he grew up in this very studio doing things. I mean, so I love to see him blossom and just open up and show what he does. I mean, he's competed at the national level with dance, and his skills and his energy and his enthusiasm, it's people latch on to it, and he'll get people just walking up to him being like, "Hey, you're that kid who dances." And so yeah, bragging on my kid, he's good. Now he's probably not going to go into television. He wants to be right now he wants to be an emergency room doctor and an entertainer on the side. He wants to be the next Justin Timberlake. It's one of his favorite performers. So he'll do that on the side and then help people in emergency rooms after that.
Yeah,
so.
He's one of the coolest kids you will ever meet. And one of the reasons that makes him so cool too is you guys have a really fun fact. You love concerts. And he has probably been to more concerts than any of us in this department combined.
He has seen probably more people than they're watching this combined, because I have a list on my phone, and I think he is at 48 different artists.
Wow.
That he has seen in his 11 years of life. And a couple of those he's seen twice. Like he's seen Weird Al twice. He's seen I can't remember who else he's seen twice. Foo Fighters he's seen twice. I won't go on the full list, but he's seen a lot of musical acts. Weezer twice. This is his favorite band too. He's seen Weezer twice. And we like to go to concerts, and it's one of our big things. And he likes music. He loves music. He latched on to music at a young age. Music and Star Wars are two of his favorite things, and so that's what he. So we go to concerts, and it's one of those things. We'll be out there partying till the end of the night, rocking out with various bands across the country. So,
well, back to you and your role here at Troy. Now you're the director of television.
Yes.
What does that role entail?
Basically, I went from just running the news department to the entire television station. TrojanVision, the university has its own television station. We have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week television station that broadcasts on cable systems all throughout Southeast Alabama, and now around the world, because we have a new TrojanVision app. Commercial plug there. Download it right now. You can watch this anytime on the app. But I run the television station, which is all the aspects of it. So the news department is a big chunk of it and what we do here. But we do a lot of programs like this one right here that we're doing. Concerts, speeches, events on campus. We tell the Troy story through the television station. We are an outreach platform that people that want to know what's going on at Troy, they can tune in and watch us. We get alums that like to tune in and watch us and watch the shows and watch the programs and watch the newscasts to see what's going on campus, because we stream the live newscasts every night. So in that, like I organize, the staff, I organize the student staff, I organize the shows, programming the shows, upgrades, equipment, trying to stay, on the pulse of what's going on in the world, equipment-wise. So, but basically, I moved up to the director of television. As when Kyle Bozeman retired, he was a station manager. I assumed that role. I was promoted up into that role, and then was promoted up to director of television. We did some shuffling around of the departments, and so basically, I run and coordinate the channel. And the staff of Jeff Herring and Paige Ray are the two other TV staff members that we have here, and we do that on a daily basis. So we do the news, and so I do the television station. We run this, and that's like we tell the Troy story through television, through programming, through the variety of types of programs we have here. So that's basically what the director of television does.
Well, do you have a story that stands out as your favorite memory besides coming here and meeting your lovely wife? But since you've come back, as far as an event you've covered or a person you've gotten to meet or some kind of your favorite story of working here at Troy?
Well, one of the things, I used to do this kind of stuff. Like one of my primary things when I was in the old job was doing interviews. And I always talk about my favorite interviews. My favorite guest was Patty Duke, Academy Award winner, Patty Duke. And she was my absolute favorite interview because she even said to me afterwards, she says, you interview better than Pierce Morgan.
There you go.
And I was like, there you go. I'm ready. And at the time, Pierce had taken over for Larry King, so it was kind of a big deal. And she was so sweet and so awesome. And I interviewed her here, and then the one, Ann Rosenheck. And I'm about to tear up just thinking about Ann Rosenheck. She's a Holocaust survivor. And that interview is the one interview where I had to hold back tears hearing her story. And I interviewed her a couple of times, but that's one of those where I was like, that interview and what we did will always stand out to me. I will never forget her telling her story and what she went through in the Holocaust. It's like I'm starting to water up a little bit, so I got to stop talking about her. So, but the people that I interviewed, Radio, the movie Radio with Cuba Gooding Jr. I interviewed the real guy Radio was based off of, him and the coach, and we were doing the interview. He actually fell asleep while we were doing the interview. I'll never forget that. And coach was like, he just turned to me and goes, "Yeah, he likes to take cat naps every once in a while. It's okay."
That's hilarious.
But the people I've interviewed, and those are some of the most fun things. But ultimately, the people I interviewed, but it's the students going out there, and there's so many to name, but we've had folks that have gone out there and worked at the national level, and seeing those students out there in the professional world, and that's the kind of fun stuff. I mean, I could tell stories about what goes on here forever, and some of them probably never need to be told, and to be perfectly honest, but still, it's great to see the memories and how ingrained this is in my life. The television station is ingrained in my life because this is where I've spent so much of my life here at Troy University and at the television station, and the fact that now that Robin is here in the journalism department, here in the same building, we work in the same building, and then and then Brooks now comes in here and he's the kid mascot of the station. So all of those things together is what makes this important, an important part of my life.
And you are an institution here at Troy, and I think, I don't know what they'd do without you. And fun fact, by the way, Aaron shot my very first stand-up as a student reporter. So great job, because obviously it worked out well.
We were on a story. I remember we were covering the JASM rocket launch
over at
Lockheed Martin, and I was actually doing the story. And you were following along with me, and I was like, you know what? This is your story. We're going to hand it off to you. And I shot her stand-up, and we put it together, and I put her on TV for the first time.
See, you were already a teacher, even as a student.
As a student. We go way back, and that's the thing. And seeing those little success stories. That was before I was even in a professional job, and so that first connection. So like I said, when we go way back, we go way back.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been so much fun to talk to you and learn about what everything about Aaron Taylor here at Troy.
Well, you didn't learn everything about me, but you learned enough.
Next episode.
You learned enough. We're just in one episode. That's it. One interview and that's all. So thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. We'll see you back here next time.